Talor is joining us now for the next element. She is a very talented and respected coffee roaster. She was the head roaster at Tim Wendelboe, and later on went on to found Talor&Jorgen, and is now running Talormade, a really great roastery from Oslo, where they roast delicious coffees and they make spectacular donuts. Talor is just loading now, so she should be here in just a second, and then she'll be talking to you about how to choose amazing coffees, roast them, and give them character. I think that's one of the things that people find particularly interesting when it comes to choosing coffees as customers. And I think for all of us, it's part of the reason why we choose a particular coffee is also how it appeals to us visually and sensorically. Talor, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you, but can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Fantastic.
Super duper. Awesome.
All right.
Cool. All right.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're still trialing things, but the most important thing is that our presenters can be heard and seen, and you are right there. Perfect.
Perfect.
Oh, okay. All right. Over to you. I'm very happy to have you, and thank you again for your support and for being one of our awesome presenters. And yeah, I'll leave it over to you. If you have any questions to me, I'll be in the background. I'm not sure, do you have a presentation or did you just want to give a talk today?
No presentation, I'm just having a chat. Yeah, things are actually pretty busy for us, even though it's the middle of a pandemic. So yeah. It's been a busy week.
All right. Yeah. I'm gonna try and go into the background, and oh, you've disappeared again. Okay, I hope the internet connection won't be an issue. Okay. So please go ahead and tell us a little bit about how you source coffees as a roaster, and then also how you bring out the best in them and to give them character.
Yeah, sure. So I have a little bit of a structure kind of set up for how I want to go through. I think I'll hit upon all of those points, but if I miss anything or if there's anything that you'd like to know a little bit more about, feel free to jump in the chat, and I can very happy to answer. I know that you gave me a lovely introduction, so thank you very much for that. But welcome. Yeah, a little bit more about me is that I'm originally from Australia, actually. And I moved to France in 2012, and then I ended up moving to Oslo at the end of 2012. So I've been living over in Europe for almost 8 years now. Yeah, so the reason why I ended up opening my own business, where do you go after you work for Tim Wendelboe? Like, what coffee job do you do after working for Tim? And I was kind of stuck in Norway because I married a Norwegian. And I was like, okay, instead of, moving on to a job that I didn't care about because my career has always been my main focus, I was like, okay, I want to keep on progressing. And I found that, starting my own company was probably the only way that I could do that. So yeah, the whole idea behind who I am and what I'm trying to do with my business is that I really like to make specialty coffee accessible to as many people as possible. I feel like specialty coffee can sometimes be a little bit unfriendly to people that wouldn't identify themselves as specialty coffee consumers. And for me, I feel like it's my mission to be able to make ethical and traceable and delicious coffee for everybody, because I feel like sometimes because coffee is so subjective, it can be for everybody, but it's just the way that we talk about it and communicate it that makes it for people. So yeah, a little bit about me. I'm here in Oslo. I have a new company called Talormade. We just opened our first shop in February this year, after starting our production facility in the middle of 2019. I'm about to also open 2 more stores this year, maybe 3. But now, because of the pandemic, things are kind of a little bit up in the air. So we'll see how it goes. It's anyone's guess. But so I'm talking a little bit about roasting and sourcing today. And I think I am very fortunate to be in a very interesting position when it comes to sourcing and roasting coffee, because I have been a very small roaster in the past. At Talor&Jorgen, I think, 4 tons of coffee a year, which is relatively small. And now with Talormade, we are roasting about 45 tons a year. And I mean, in the grand scheme of things, 45 tons is actually not that much coffee, but certainly for a person who has gone from 4 tons to 45 tons, it's a pretty big jump. So I'm currently moving one category into the next when it comes to purchasing and sourcing coffee. So yeah, this talk actually comes at a really beautiful time because I just came back from my first ever sourcing trip in Ethiopia, which also landed me in quarantine for a while, which kind of sucked, but it was worth it. I got about 7 tons of really delicious Ethiopian coffee, so that's really cool. But first off, I want to talk a little bit about our coffee boxes. And I was going to do a cupping with you guys today, but the thing is that even though it's Sunday, I was in the kitchen at 6 o'clock donuts. So I've been working since 6 this morning, and also in Oslo, the clocks just changed last night. So I lost an hour of sleep as well. So I'm feeling pretty rough today. So instead of cupping, I'm just going to talk to you about our coffees. So I have a couple of our boxes of coffee here. This is one of the first coffees that we ever shared. It's we call it black currant and butter. But the reason why we call it those two things I'll get to later. But it's also all the rest of the information is on the back of the box as well. It's a really beautiful coffee. I'm going to open a box that we got back in the mail from one of our members. This was our Christmas coffee, actually, orange and clove. It was the first direct trade coffee that we ever did from a really lovely woman named Carla Boza in El Salvador. I'm just going to open this one up so that you guys can see the inside of the boxes, because I think design and communication is a really, really big part of being able to connect with people that want to drink your coffee. So I've opened up the box here, and then on the inside, we have the bag of coffee. Pretty nondescript bag. It says a little bit about who we are on the back and how you dispose of the bag. This bag is actually biodegradable, which is really cool. I think we were one of the first coffee roasteries to actually come through with genuinely biodegradable materials. It's been a little bit tricky working with this provider because it is such a new material. We have had some challenges with the make of the bags. We've definitely had a few people coming back to us and saying, the seal works so well. And it's because it's a biodegradable material. So yeah, it's not faring so well, but hopefully on the second run, it's going to be much better. But yeah, when you open up the box as well, you can see inside it's full of emojis because we really wanted to have something really exciting for the people who actually got to open the box. Something really cool as well is that we have a Norwegian stamp on the bottom of these boxes, which means that in Norway, we can actually send this box through the mail. So you don't have to add any extra packaging. And it means that when you open the box at home, this is sitting waiting for you. So it kind of feels like Christmas every single week if you get coffee delivered from us. The whole idea was just to make the coffee feel as special as we felt that it was. Because I feel like sometimes coffee packaging doesn't really communicate how great it is effectively enough. But yeah, so it's really cool. We made sure that this box was the right size to fit in like the average Norwegian mailbox, which is really awesome. The provider of the bags is a company in China called MT. I'm currently working with them on getting a second run that hopefully doesn't have as many issues as this original bag did. I'm still really happy that I got to use a biodegradable bag because I think the environmental impact of what we're doing, I just don't want to create trash that's going to end up in a landfill. So for me, this was really important, even if it had some issues. We're taking a step in the right direction. Okay, so that's a little bit about the boxes and the packaging. A little bit about the sustainability, just going back to, it's really important for me that I'm doing something ethically, like I'm not just creating more garbage that's going to end up in landfill. The reason why we spend so much time and money and effort developing the packaging that our coffee would go in is because I don't really want to appeal to the average specialty coffee consumer, because I feel like I'm very fortunate enough that a lot of people who are specialty coffee consumers maybe already know who I am and maybe already trust the roasting that I do. So yeah, I'm very lucky. I've been working in coffee for years, so I've built up that reputation. So I'm very fortunate in that way. So the thing is that I think that the specialty coffee market is a little bit of a niche. It's only so big. So by making the packaging this way, I wanted someone who wasn't necessarily identifying as a coffee consumer to pick this box up off a shelf and say, what is that? And then I wanted to tell them, it's really beautiful coffee that we roast here locally in Oslo. And then they would try it and hopefully they would see, wow, that's really delicious. And I love having this box on this kitchen counter because it makes me feel like special and good. So yeah, that was the whole idea behind the packaging, is that I feel like producers are doing such amazing work, and everyone in this system is doing really fantastic work, and it's up to me as the roaster and the person selling this as retail to add value. And I feel like the roasting adds a certain amount of value, but in the end, it is just brown coffee beans. So part of my responsibility as a coffee roaster is to make you want it by making it beautiful and lovely. So yeah, that's kind of the reason why we spend so much time making these really beautiful. Also, I really, really love good design. And I think that, like, why would I want to put something into the world unless it was gorgeous? Like, if you're going to put your name on something, why not make it fabulous? So that's my legacy. I want to put things into the world that are like ethical and delicious and gorgeous. And I feel like we're kind of doing okay so far with that, which is very nice. Getting a little bit onto that, we appeal to people that wouldn't necessarily see themselves as special consumers. I thought about the reasons, like why do specialty coffee roasters pack and communicate coffee the way that they do? I think we just have been copying from one another, to be completely honest with you. So when I was working at Tim's, something that I would see quite a lot is I would see some people who were actually quite confident in coffee coming into the shop and saying to me, oh, I don't remember the name of the coffee that I really liked. All I remember is that it had a label. Because a lot of the time people didn't feel really comfortable or confident saying the names of the producers. Maybe they would feel comfortable saying the name of the country. But I felt like, if they came, they wouldn't feel comfortable saying finca tamana because, they don't speak Spanish. That word is not familiar to them. And it meant that the interaction for them was beginning from an uncomfortable place. So I thought to myself, okay, I've seen a lot of people say to me, I really like that coffee with a blue label. So I was like, okay, color is really important. And then also, it's really easy to communicate, especially very distinct tastes. And there was also some research that came out a couple of years ago that was people who identify themselves as like coffee professionals prefer more verbose descriptors when it comes to coffee descriptors and packaging. But the average person really prefers it to be very simple and decisive, and instead of being verbose and descriptive. So that's why I went 2 names for each coffee. So typically with each of the coffees, we will cup the coffees and find the 2 most distinct characteristics. Tasting the coffees for the first time, we're not looking for things that are hard to find. We're not looking for flavors that are tricky or hidden. We're looking for the most punchy, upfront, very obvious things, and hopefully things that the average person would be able to taste that coffee and have this little light bulb moment of like, oh, I understand and I get and I taste that. And that is one of the things that I love most about what we do, is that I get a lot of feedback from customers saying, like, when you say black currant, I tasted that black currant, it tasted like black currants that I had from a bush in my, from my childhood. And when I say butter, so it's black currant and butter, so it communicates that there is some kind of fruit. It's like a berry, so it's some kind of like juicy berry. When I say black currant, it's like that dark, heavy kind of berry juice, rather than that bright red sweet, whether it be raspberry or strawberry. And then you've got the butteriness, which communicates like the mouth coffee, because it's not sharp. It's got that like creamy buttery element to it as well. And for example, like this coffee that I've got here, it's a coffee from El Salvador, and we called it Orange and Clove. And this coffee was a very heavy, spicy El Salvadorian coffee. So you know, we communicated the spiciness with the clove element, and then with the orange as well, we communicated the fruitiness and the kind of like it was a Christmas coffee as well. So we were also like referencing very Norwegian Christmas flavors, because we wanted people to see this on a shelf and say, you know, that's a Christmas flavor. We also did some really fun stuff with the logo on the top, and put some like little snow sitting on the caps, and also some emojis of snowflakes. Yeah, we just like to have a lot of fun. It's like, why would you build a company, and why would you want to come to work unless you were having a great time all the time? So yeah, it's a little bit about our design. We worked with a design company here in Oslo called Bjelke and Yang, who are some old mates of mine, but honestly, I feel like they're some of the best. We pay them a lot for it, but I genuinely think that it's worth it, because I feel like the average person could walk up to a retail shelf and grab this box, and if understanding that it's coffee, they would then understand that, like, I want to have this box, I want to take it home. So I feel like the design is doing what we want it to, which is making people want what we sell, which is delicious roasted coffee. And I feel like if you make something beautiful, you don't have to sell it. It just sells itself. You know, people just want to grab it from a shelf. And we do all the hard work by making the coffee taste delicious. Does the hard work by getting the coffee in people's hands. Yeah. But yeah, we also have all of the information about the coffee on the back. And then we have a lot more descriptive information about processing and picking and altitude and all of that stuff for the people who really want to get into the minutiae on our website. Okay, so as I was saying before, I feel like coffee is one of those things that's kind of, there's a lot of gatekeeping in coffee. It's like, oh, I'm new to tasting coffee, so I don't feel very comfortable, so I don't really know what I'm doing. Everyone is capable of tasting coffee. It's having and building that vocabulary so that you can communicate effectively. That is part of the Q grader certification, is that it's less about being taught how to taste, but more how to create a vocabulary so that you can communicate those flavors to others in the same room. I feel like tasting and flavor is subjective, and it's also completely about your cultural background as well. So I'm Australian. I was born and raised in Australia, but I lived for quite a Europe. And the fruit and vegetables that we have in Europe, there is a lot of crossover, but the quality and the freshness and the intensity of those fruits and vegetables are very different in the Northern Hemisphere than they were in the Southern Hemisphere. So I feel like I've been very fortunate that I have quite a broad cultural experience that allows me to be able to describe flavors very accurately. Also, it's a little bit about practice as well. I've been cupping coffee for like 15 years. But I feel like the moment that you open up a cupping table to someone and you give the permission to express what they're tasting and how they're tasting it, you'd be surprised what comes out of those conversations, I think. The two roasters on my team are very, very new to coffee. But I take their opinions very seriously, because just because I'm not experiencing something doesn't mean that it's not valid. Because, you know, you have all types of people tasting your coffee. So it's really important to get that breadth of experience and that breadth of feedback from a bunch of people with very different experiences with coffee tasting. Because, as I said, coffee is subjective. And we want to make our coffees appeal to the broadest range of people possible. Because as coffee, especially coffee, is such a niche, I feel like that's where we lose out a little bit. Because if you only have this much of the market segment, what about everyone else who still really likes to drink coffee? They just don't like to engage with it the same way. So yeah, we're trying to appeal to a broader range of people. So then we can buy more coffee and pay better prices for coffee and have, you know, bring more value to the value chain by doing what we do and people. It's actually the reason why I ended up making donuts, to be completely honest, because in Oslo, we have a pretty small food scene. And when I knew I was going to be stuck here, I was like, well, you know, instead of complaining about the fact that there's very little food options, why don't I do something about that? What is really great with coffee? I feel like donuts and coffee go very well together. I have training as a pastry chef, and I was like, I think that I could do this. You know, donuts are very fun. They can be seasonal. They're well, you know, if you make them with the ingredients that are in the place where you come from. And they're very unique, and they can be very fun. But you can also make them with very high quality ingredients. So it means that like you can take it very seriously, and you can do a great job of making them, and you can make them very delicious. But that's the thing, you can never really take a donut super seriously. Like even if it's gourmet, it's still just a donut. And I feel like coffee and donuts, they're so inherently tied together. So if I could bring a lot of people into my and get them excited about eating my donuts, they're going to have a cup of coffee at the same time. And as long as they're happy to pay for that cup of coffee, that's the only thing that matters. And then they drink it and enjoy it, and then they might become a specialty coffee consumer without even realizing that they've become one. And yeah, it's just this lovely hand-in-hand thing that has helped me. I've used the donuts to grow my coffee roastery instead of the other way around. I don't have to teach my customers how to enjoy the coffee that I roast. They just enjoy it. And it brings a lot of people in the door, and it's really exciting. And I think it allows me some things that people in specialty coffee maybe haven't been able to do, because growing a specialty coffee business just on coffee alone is very, very challenging. And yeah, especially during these times with the pandemic, I feel like in Oslo, at least, everywhere that is serving just coffee is basically closed. But because we are serving donuts, we're still open. And touch wood, I'm just going to knock the wood. We're doing okay, actually. Because people are really excited about coming in, eating a donut, and having that little bit of joy in their day. And, you know, they still get a cup of coffee. So it means that our roastery is still humming along and supporting our donut shop. And yeah, everything's really lovely and great. So I'm going to get a little bit into sourcing now. We are just about to step over a bridge. In the past, I have been buying coffees off a spot list, which is when you go to a coffee importer and you purchase coffee from a list of coffees that they've tasted themselves and brought into their warehouses. Spot lists are good and bad. Some of the reasons why they're great is because, at least for me, I'm very fortunate that we have Nordic Approach in Oslo, which is probably one of the best known for their quality in the world. And I really jive with the coffees that they like to bring into the country, which is very fortunate. I used to work there. So, of course, I really trust the coffees that they source, their ethics and their traceability and their transparency. And they coffees that I really, really love. So that's great. But yeah, the thing is now that I've started to roast so much more coffee than I have been before, the problem with that is that the spot lists, it's not enough for us, actually, because, you know, we'll go and we'll do a cupping with them and there'll be 20 bags of one coffee and we can only secure 5 of those bags. And then, for example, we've had a coffee for 1 week that has run out because we've gone through all 5 bags of this coffee in 1 week, because that's how. And then you're bringing in new coffees every single week, and it's just complete chaos. So it's gotten to this point, at least for us and our customers, where we need to have like larger lots of the same coffees long term so that we can give our customers stability and we can have stability. And it means that we're not having like this crazy rotation going in and out of the roastery all the time. So what that has meant is that the end goal is for us to buy FOB, which is free on board, which means that we pay the upfront costs for the coffee. It means that we deal with the importing, export, and it also means that we take 100% of the risk. It does mean that you get a cheaper price, and it does mean that you get to work more directly with the people that produce the coffee. But for us right now, FOB is just a little bit outside of where our comfort zone right now, because with FOB, you have to have a lot of cash available to be able to pay before the coffee leaves the country. Because I have a brand new business and we just have been in a big growth stage, we don't have a ton of cash just sitting around. So what we've done with Nordic Approach is something that is very new for them, actually, which is something they call Nordic Direct, which means that we pay a little bit less, but we secure more of the coffees, and we typically travel to origin with them when they're choosing the coffees. The other thing that is really fantastic by doing this Nordic Direct is that then what we are able to do is they actually finance the coffees for us as well. So we only pay them once we draw them down from the warehouse that is in Europe. So they do the exporting and the importing, and then they help us finance the coffees. And then we pay when we draw it down. But the only thing is that we still take the risk. So Nordic Approach will not take these coffees back if there is a qualitative problem. Whereas if you're buying from a spot list, typically if you're having an issue with a coffee, you can reach out to your importer and say, hey, I'm having an issue. There's this quality problem. Sometimes they'll take the coffee back. Sometimes they'll give you a discount. Typically, I think Nordic Approach has really amazing customer service, and they're really fantastic with the ensuring the quality of the coffee that we get. So yeah, sleep, and we just bought 7 tons of our first coffee, like directly in a way. I think coffee is not as black and white as direct or, not direct. There are so many people that play a part in the game. And it's not as simple as like, here is a producer, here is a roaster, connect those two people. Sometimes it can be, but import and export is incredibly complicated. And I am very willing to admit this is not something that I know anything about. So right now I'm kind of in the beginning of my journey to purchasing green coffee directly. It's such a loose term. I feel like it's a term that's been co-opted by marketing people. But yeah, we're doing our best to be able to have unique and individual coffees that are just for us. When it comes to sourcing coffees, maybe I'll talk a little bit about the kinds of coffees that I like to buy. So my ethos is that people like to drink coffee. I like to roast coffee. I want to connect those two people. But the thing is, there's so many people, different subjective opinions about what good coffee is. And the really fantastic thing is that producers aren't only able to produce one kind of coffee. Maybe there's a slightly wealthier producer who has great infrastructure, has great financial backing, has great systems, is on top of their stuff, and they produce really amazing coffee. But maybe their neighbor who has this potential to be able to create really great coffee, but maybe doesn't have that education or infrastructure, but it still has this potential, their coffees, and then I can market them and roast them in a way that will appeal to different people, that will still allow me to move these coffees and to connect them with the people that want to drink them. So this is my ethos, is that I buy loads of different qualities of coffee, everything specialty, but different places in the qualitative scale. I roast them in a way to reflect, I think, the way that coffee would probably be enjoyed, whether it be more development, more sweetness, more brightness. And then I typically try to get that coffee into the hands of the people that like to drink it. So for example, right now, I have this experimental lactic fermented coffee from Indonesia, which there was just a 5-bag micro lot, and it tastes like candy. Tastes like Concord grape. One of the most incredible coffees I've ever tasted. And then we market that coffee in a way that connects to the people who are into that sort of thing. Because, there are some people that would drink that would think it was disgusting. But there are some people that would drink it and think it was the best coffee they ever had. But then I also buy coffees that is like scale, maybe showing a little bit of age, maybe has a slight defect. But if I roast it in a way that can like mask or hide those things by roasting it more, developing more sweetness, pushing further into the Maillard reaction, And then I want to connect it with people who like to drink classic traditional coffees, but also care about the ethical transparency of the coffees that they're drinking. So yeah, for me, it's I can be good at a lot of things. I don't have to just do like crazy, bright, amazing African coffees. I love those, but I can do a lot of everything. So yeah, I guess maybe I'm getting to the end of the time where I should be speaking, and maybe it's over to but yeah, I was. I'm pretty sure that's it. Maybe we can just. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's so fascinating to listen to people tell their stories, and in particular when it comes to, I really like that aspect about the design of your packaging and the design of your brand in general. It is really important actually to think about that, because it is really a total package, right? And by standing out, not just because of the coffees that you choose and offer as a roaster, also the way you market your brand and yourself, that also makes a really big difference. And I think you do an amazing job at showing a really beautiful and creative and playful side to specialty coffee that in some instances, it can be maybe a little bit too serious in some cases. So well done on that.
This is the thing, is like, I feel like you don't, for a really long time, coffee was really trying to prove itself. And everyone in specialty coffee was like, look at me, I'm a professional. And I feel like we've moved past that now. People understand I'm a professional. I've been doing this for almost 2 decades. I know what I'm doing. You can trust me with it. And so let me have fun and play.
Yes.
Yeah. And those two things don't have to be mutually exclusive, like seriousness and professionalism. Yeah.
And how do you, I mean, this is obviously, if somebody knows you already, they would trust your ability to source and roast amazing coffees. You earlier said that, you want to make coffee more accessible to a wider audience, which is partially done through your donuts. So people, who come in and they buy a donut, they get a cup of coffee and they're like, oh, this is amazing coffee. And then you start getting them used to specialty coffee. But how do you create rapport with someone who is has no connection to specialty coffee at all, and maybe doesn't know your donuts either? How would you do that?
I think that's kind of where customer service comes in, really. And I think that, yeah, I'm a pretty good pastry chef and I'm a pretty good coffee roaster, but I think the thing that I'm the best at is that to make people feel good. And I think that's like the foundation principle of being in hospitality. My mum's a hairdresser. I grew up in her salon when I was a little kid, and I grew up talking to people. And, just having that conversation of, when you're introduced to someone and you say, hi, how are you? And then you have the back and forth of, yeah, I'm well. And yourself? And it's just creating that window for conversation. And yeah, the whole idea about like what I do and the packaging and the way that I build the shop is that I just want to make people feel good. I want them to come in this joy that kind of springs up, because life's pretty tough these days, honestly. Like,
especially these days.
Yeah, especially these days. And honestly, I want to give people a little bit of a break from that. So by coming into our place, you just get to put the rest of your life on hold for 30 minutes. And yeah, I think that's how we connect with people, is that we connect with people on a whole bunch of different levels. And I think it's about the intention of it as well, because, you say about the marketing, but the thing is like, I don't really do any marketing. Talk about what we're doing. Like, I just tell the story, because I'm really proud of the stuff that we do. Like, I'm proud of the work that I've done, and I'm really proud of my team. And so I love talking about it. And I feel like, what's the old idiom? Like, if a tree falls in the woods and no one heard it, did it really fall? Something like that. It's like I tell the story, because if nobody knows about it, then what good would that do? So at least if I tell the story, then I connect with the people who might care about the kind of stuff that we do. So
indeed.
Yeah.
Shall we move over to some questions from the audience?
Sure, let's go for it.
So I actually did a survey earlier to ask how people choose their coffees, and just wanted to share the results. So people actually go by flavor quite a lot. Origin is important. People are still voting, so let's see if we get some more votes in. 105 people have voted already. Keep the votes coming. We're going to go to some question time now. I've got a question here from Ronaldo. I'm going to put it on the screen. In your experience, what's your opinion on omni roasts?
Great question. I am roast. I think, honestly, I'm going to say something that a lot of roasters are going to hate right now. And that, like, a lot of roasters like to pretend that they know what they're doing. No one knows what they're doing. Everyone's just making it up as they go along. 100%. To even, like, working for Tim, I was like, oh, you know, I'm finally going to get the key to open the door to, like, me understanding, like, for me finally getting coffee and being able to, like, be really good at coffee. But that's the thing, like, with coffee roasting, it's like you roast it how you think it might work. And if it's not bad, you do it another way. And then if it is good, you just do that again. And the thing is that it's really, I think coffees have this window of deliciousness. The quality of a coffee will depend on, like, how big that window of deliciousness is. So maybe if you hit different roasting targets, it will express itself different ways. And I think that you can use a brewing equipment to bring out different aspects of that coffee depending on the kind of roast or the level. For example, this Indonesian coffee that I was just talking about, one of the quality markers that we use is color. We use this equipment called a color track. And one of the guys roasted the coffee just, like, slightly too dark, just outside of our color window. We cupped the coffee before considering sending it, and I wasn't 100% happy with it because it had, like, a slight dryness on the finish.
What?
And but it's still a really gorgeous coffee, and it was still very drinkable. And so what I did is that I sold the coffee as, like, a test roast, and I sold it to be enjoyed as an espresso because the development had kind of pushed into an area would be best as espresso. But somebody came back to me and they said, hey, I bought that coffee that you said was espresso. And he said, I brewed it as a filter coffee, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
So I feel like that kind of, that's Omni Roast for you. It's like, put the coffee in a brewing method and it's going to be fine.
But it is a fine line, isn't it? I mean, for you as a roaster, you know this for sure. But it is a fine line between, you know, just getting it right and not getting it right. And sometimes you have, you know, people who send, like, we get a lot of submissions from different roasters who want to be part of our box, and they sometimes send us coffees with an Omni Roast, and it's too developed and it tastes really, really bad in filter, but it probably tastes okay as an espresso. It is definitely, I think, an art form that is quite challenging, I think, in some respects.
I think it's really subjective, though, because, you know, maybe where they come from, that level of roast is like the norm for their culture. And I think it's like, it's all about your experience, and it's all about your tasting history, and it's all about your palate. And, you know, you've developed, like, a bunch of customers that like to drink coffees the way that you like to share them.
Yeah.
That's your community. And I think everyone kind of builds that community up around them a little bit.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I've got another question here from Mark. He is wondering if, I'm just going to put this on the screen, if too many varieties can scare a customer. How do you deal with that?
Like varieties as in, like, coffees on the shelf?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. The way that I like to deal with it is because we have had a really, like, huge lineup. Like, we have new coffees coming in all the time until we start getting these larger lots every couple of weeks. It's like bam, 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 bam. One thing is the foundation principle of our memberships, which is, like, kind of like a subscription thing, is that we have a really big rotation of coffees all the time. So you're always getting something different. I think there was a really long time where we didn't send the same coffee out twice. And when we did, people were like, what is this? I got the same coffee twice? It's a joke. But the other thing is, like, in the cafe, the typical question that I ask a person when I see them looking at the retail shelf is, tell me what kind of coffee you like to drink. So I want to make the retail shelf approachable. And that's kind of the reason why we named the coffees the way we did as well, is because we want the average person to be able to walk up to the retail shelf and feel confident picking up a box and making a decision the way that it's described. So yeah, I guess it's just like, maybe our customers understand the way that we sell our coffees. And I think the different selection, I think, can be really exciting, actually. I love trying new coffees. It's one of my favorite things about my job. So
absolutely. All right, let's see. We've got more questions here. So many. A lot of people are asking if you deliver worldwide. I'm sure you do.
We just launched our new website maybe like a month ago. And yeah, we're shipping and packing. It's
all right.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, I've got a question here from Alif. I'm just going to put this on the screen. When you're profiling the roast, do you also test it with other brewing methods, i.e. immersion and infusion and other types of water, or just cup it? Any recommendations?
Yes. So typically we brew our coffee, typically espresso, and also I like to do gravity-fed paper filter methods. I think working at Tim Wendelboe me up for AeroPress. Like, no, I saw you brewing an AeroPress before, so I apologize about that. I just don't like it. I feel like it's really cloudy and it has a weird texture. I'm not a fan of AeroPress. But I really love like V60, Kalita, Melita, you know, all of those, like pour the coffee on the water through a paper filter. I feel like all coffee can shine that way, or at least yeah, to me, it's the best. So yeah, typically they're the two ways that we brew them. And then yeah, cupping as well. Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's see. Then there's another question here from Zia. We're going to put this one on the screen. Do you grade your beans yourself or trust the grade of the producer as the leading quality indicator?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. So typically one of the benefits of working with an importer is that we can trust the way that they grade, well, not the way they grade the coffee, but typically the quality of the coffee that will end up in their offer list. But, you know, sometimes you do have to give a little bit of feedback are outside of the quality markers, you know. Sometimes you'll get a coffee that's woody, sometimes you'll get a coffee that maybe has some insect damage, sometimes you'll get a coffee that the moisture is out as well. And we don't typically grade the coffee like a Q grader might. We would if we were getting samples from a producer, and before committing to that lot, we would do that. But yeah, typically when you it's kind of, you pay for it in the price of the green when you work with an importer, that you're kind of guaranteed like a certain level of quality. I think you also have to understand, as a roaster, you are dealing with an organic product. You know, you're dealing with, so sometimes you will get sticks and stones, and sometimes you'll get popcorn, and sometimes you'll get all sorts of stuff, because it's just the nature of the beast. And I think as a roaster, you kind of adjust a little bit and like broaden your mind when it comes to like what you accept and what you don't. You have to be a little bit realistic about what is attainable, especially when you're getting coffee from particular countries with particular like infrastructure. Yeah.
All right. Okay. I think we have time for one more question, and then we're going to say goodbye to Talor. There is one question that I find quite interesting, which is about competition coffees. I'm going to put that one on the screen. Any thoughts on the current trend of competition coffees, in parentheses, from Jordan Gonzalez?
Yeah. The competition coffees, in a sense of like people brewing just geisha.
I think that's what he means.
What this is about?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that there's a place for everybody when it comes to like quality and stuff like that. But this is a bit of a tough one, actually. I think that what happens in competition is not a reflection of what is happening in the rest of the coffee industry. And it's certainly not a reflection of what's happening in a place where people are producing coffees. I think that there is a lot of money to be made by producing the kinds of coffees that are like used in competitions. And I think that there's this huge behavior, which is like the competition industry now. I feel like that place is not particularly friendly to a lot of people, and it shuts a lot of people out. Like, it shuts out producers that will never be able to produce coffee like that. And it shuts out competitors who will never be able to afford coffee like that. And it shuts out, yeah, it like, I feel like what it does is it makes the people who are visible in our industry only be like a tiny margin of what the entirety of the industry actually is. So I think that coffees are really delicious and really exciting, but I think that it kind of can drown out the bigger picture sometimes, because it's like this tiny piece of a very big and important cultural thing. But yeah, as I said, there's a place for everyone. But I wish it wasn't just like the people with money and the expensive stuff that got so much stage time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for a really inspirational talk and for sharing so much insights into your way of thinking, the way you roast, the way you source. It's been great having you on board. I think a lot of people are very interested in your coffees and will probably be flocking to your website to get some delivered to their homes so they can brew them in isolation.
Honestly, like, I'm sorry that I wasn't like super prepared for this. It's been a crazy week. Like, you have no idea.
We're all improvising. Don't worry. Don't worry. We're all improvising.
Yeah, I really, really appreciate just giving me the opportunity to talk, and I really appreciate all the questions as well. If anyone wants to ask me, I'll put my my link to my social media stuff down in the chat. But yeah,
brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you for considering me for joining this festival. Congratulations! I think it's been a success. Hey.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing our best. We're having we've got our new donations button up. Michael is moderating the Facebook comments, so we've got a lot of interesting stuff going on. A lot of people are having conversations and questions, and it's just really nice to see so many people are here today. That's the most important thing. And please, if you are still able to donate some money to our campaign, you can do so. I've put the PayPal link in the chat. I'm going to do that again so you can support this cause. And we're trying to get the other donation website fixed. It's not been working as we had hoped, but any donation would be much appreciated. I put the link up there so you can use that. Thank you, Talor. I wish you a wonderful Sunday. Hopefully things are gonna keep on going strong for you, and looking forward to seeing you again very soon.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a great rest of the festival, guys.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
All right. So Talor's gone, and we now have a short break, and we will be back with Matt Winton, who is our fourth panelist. He will be giving you a little workshop on sensory skills, how you can improve your home brewing techniques, and he will walk us through a couple of his tips and tricks that have led him to become the Swedish Barista Champion twice in a row and the Swiss Brewers Cup Champion of this year. If you're still able to donate some money, please do so. Our campaign is still up and running. Your generosity is much appreciated, and we'll be back in just a few minutes with Matt Winton. So stay tuned, get your little setup ready, and we'll be seeing you in a moment.